Hey everyone, welcome back to Upside Down Data. Today I want to talk about EGLD and what some realistic price targets are for EGLD based on Bitcoin's price. If you like the content, remember to subscribe to the channel, give the video a like and follow us on Twitter. But a lot of updates, better indicators, and more over there. So an exercise that I did with ADA recently that I think would be interesting to do with EGLD is to take a look at the correlation or the relationship between Bitcoin and EGLD and see what we might expect of EGLD's price based on what Bitcoin does. And the logic behind this exercise is that Bitcoin often kind of acts as the barometer for health in the crypto market. You know, when Bitcoin tends to do well, altcoins tend to do well. When Bitcoin does poorly, altcoins tend to do poorly as well. And we can just see that kind of descriptively when we look at EGLD's price in the blue here, overlaid with the Bitcoin price here in orange. You can see that generally speaking, when Bitcoin's going up, EGLD tends to go up. When Bitcoin goes down, EGLD tends to go down, up, up, and then down, down. And so the idea then is that if there is this relation, if Bitcoin is kind of the asset that tends to kind of set the tone for the crypto space, then there might be some alpha we can gain or some understanding we can gain by understanding, given a Bitcoin price level, where would we expect EGLD to be? And then if Bitcoin does hit one of those price targets, we can evaluate, did EGLD hit that same target, or is it overperforming relative to what we'd expect, or is it underperforming relative to what we expect? And that can give some useful information. So let's go ahead and do this. So the way that I've done this for this exercise is I've just used the basic logarithmic regression predicting the log 10 EGLD price from the log 10 Bitcoin price. And so the way that we would interpret this parameter, this beta here, is 1.55 means that every time that Bitcoin goes up or down by a factor of 10, then you'd expect EGLD to go up by a factor of 1.55, factor of 10, or down by a 1.55 factor of 10. That's the way you'd interpret this. And so if you're not familiar with R squared, that's basically a metric that tries to get at how much variance in this case, EGLD's logarithmic price is being explained by Bitcoin's log price. And 0.67 basically means that, about 67% of the variance in EGLD's price can be explained by Bitcoin's price. And I should also clarify with this model, I limited it to data only from beginning of 2021 to now. The reason for this decision was that, I figured that more recent relationship between Bitcoin's price and EGLD's price is probably more likely to predict future action than the relation between Bitcoin and EGLD all the way back at the very beginning when EGLD was a really small cap asset. I figured that as it became more mature, more likely now that Bitcoin's relation to it now is more representative of what will happen in the future versus the relationship that might have existed in the past. Obviously, other people could do it other ways, but that's just an assumption that I made for this particular analysis. So this is the model, everything's, obviously Bitcoin's price does quite significantly predict EGLD's price and a decent R squared out of it. Now let's do the kind of more interesting part of this exercise and look at some hypothetical Bitcoin prices and see what it would expect EGLD's price to be if that were to happen. So the first thing I did is just looked at the current Bitcoin price and see where we'd expect the EGLD price to be just purely based on this relationship with Bitcoin. And interestingly, the EGLD currently is actually outperforming this expectation. So EGLD is currently trading up a bit over $50 as I record this, around $51. Bitcoin is currently trading at around 19.7K. But then the expected EGLD price is $42. So this would suggest that currently EGLD is actually outperforming where we expect it to be based on Bitcoin's price. And you could interpret that in two different ways, right? You might expect that to mean that EGLD is overvalued right now and that it kind of regressing towards this predicted value is likely. The other way you can interpret it is that it's showing relative strength, that it's kind of outperforming what we'd expect purely on its relationship to Bitcoin, which might suggest that it has kind of its own unique strength that it's exhibiting. I'll let you make your own decision. And of course, 51 is not that different from 42. So I'll let you interpret those data as you will. But it's just interesting that there's that current divergence between expectation and reality. But now let's start looking at some hypothetical Bitcoin prices and where EGLD would go. So we're going to start with some bearish scenarios here. So let's imagine that Bitcoin slips below its current range, drops below the 17.5K-ish local low that it had, goes all the way down to 13K, which is a level that a lot of people have been calling for, kind of 13K and to like 11K-ish range. And we can see is that the predicted EGLD value or price would be all the way down at $22, so less than half of its current value. So that would be pretty brutal, right? You know, Bitcoin would be dropping less than 50%, but then EGLD, because EGLD tends to be more volatile, or the, you know, because that beta was greater than 1, EGLD is expected to fall, you know, greater than 50% here, which would be kind of course, not desirable. And things would get even worse if Bitcoin were to fall all the way down to 6K, which is a level that a lot of people have looked at as being kind of what they might consider the kind of the ultimate bottom, or the worst case bottom if this bear market gets really bad. And if that were to happen, we can see the EGLD would be expected to fall all the way down to $6.60 roundabout. So really levels it hasn't been at since fall of 2020. It'd be a quite brutal drawdown in EGLD for sure, especially given the fact that its all-time high was, you know, north of $500. So that'd be pretty brutal if that were to come to pass. But of course, that's the bearish scenario. Let's look at some bullish cases as well. So let's imagine that Bitcoin has a rally and it moves up 50% up to the 30K level. Where would we expect EGLD to hit? Well, we'd expect EGLD in this case to be at $80.85. So that would be a notable move up. You know, it'd be almost twice of what the predicted value would be from current Bitcoin's level. But in reality, you know, it would be up a little bit less than that, you know, going up from a little over $50 currently up to 80. So certainly not bad, nothing to sneeze at in this kind of lightly bullish scenario of Bitcoin going up 50%. Now let's imagine that Bitcoin rallied all the way up to 45K, so over 2x from where it's at now, where, well, we can actually see the EGLD would actually end up doing a 3x from current levels if that happened. We'd expect it to be up $150 roundabout should Bitcoin rally up to 45, and assuming it keeps, you know, it keeps with this relation to Bitcoin and it rallies to the same degree. Obviously, in reality, it could keep going further, it could rally a lot harder, or it might not rally as much. You know, there might be some other factors. If there's bullish catalysts, could send it up further. If there's some bearish news, that could send it, you know, not as high as this. Now let's look and see if, let's imagine Bitcoin was able to go up and retest its prior all-time high at around 69K. Well, in that scenario, we expect EGLD to be right around $300, a little bit less than $300. So a huge move up from where it is right now, you know, 6x from current levels, just about. But interestingly, it would not be back at its prior all-time high. You know, the prior all-time high being at around 550 or so, 558 maybe, somewhere in that ballpark. I don't remember the exact number. But that is notable then. It's interesting to note that purely on its relationship to Bitcoin, we would not expect EGLD to hit its prior all-time high if Bitcoin hit its prior all-time high. And in some ways, this might make some sense, because when EGLD did hit its all-time high, it was riding a massive wave of hype behind the launch of the Maillard DEX, kind of the first big DEX on the Elrond network. And so really what that might suggest is that it kind of got away from its, you know, you might consider its kind of Bitcoin predicted value in that instance, that when we went up and hit 69K with Bitcoin, a big wave of hype really pushed Elrond a lot further. And so what that could mean is that should this happen again, should Bitcoin really rally and should there be some kind of big bullish catalyst for EGLD, then it need not stop at $300. But then, of course, as I mentioned before, if there be some bearish kind of factor that's feeding into Elrond, or some bearish narrative, that could make it underperform this estimate. And then finally, let's imagine a super bullish scenario where Bitcoin rallies all the way to 100K. Well, here, the expectation would be that EGLD would get right around back to its all-time high. And again, this is assuming just that's purely based on its relationship with Bitcoin. That's what we expect, ignoring kind of any hype, anything special like that. And so I think the way that we can look at these price targets is kind of a base case, right? That if its relationship with Bitcoin stays constant, there's not anything that interferes with that, these are kind of the price levels we might expect if Bitcoin goes to these different levels. But as I mentioned before, there could be catalysts in either direction that could make these, you know, miss to the downside or to the upside, right? If there's bullish headwinds in EGLD in either direction, right? If there are bullish headwinds even into weakness, you know, even if Bitcoin falls to 13K, for example, if there are really bullish things going on with Elrond, it need not fall all the way down to $22, maybe not even close. But of course, also, we have to remember that there's particular bearish things that happen with Elrond or EGLD, and Bitcoin falls down to 13K, it could fall below $22. So these are not supposed to be hard and fast rules, but just general expectations if its relationship with Bitcoin stays unchanged and its price merely fluctuates as a function of Bitcoin. Or other way we can interpret that is just generally with market expansion or contraction. The Bitcoin, or excuse me, the crypto market is generally expanding or contracting by these different degrees. We'd expect EGLD's price to move in these levels. And then you'd look at bullish or bearish kind of alternative scenarios impacting, or additional scenarios impacting EGLD to expect outperformance to the upside or to the downside. But I do just think this is a worthwhile exercise, right? Because I think a lot of people might have just assumed that this model would have said that EGLD should revisit its all-time high when Bitcoin revisits its all-time high. It's actually not the case. This suggests that EGLD would need some kind of other thing going for it, some other kind of bullish catalyst to push it up there. Could certainly happen, but purely on its relationship with Bitcoin, we actually would not expect it get back to its all-time high, which is, I think, an interesting insight from this. And then also what this can do is just help us kind of get our bearings for if really bearish scenarios play out, where we might look for EGLD to end up hitting. And I don't think anyone wants this to happen. No one's hoping for this, or maybe there are some people who are hoping for this, but I think most people don't want to see this scenario play out. But if it were to play out, this gives us some things to watch instead of just having no idea what to look for and just potentially letting panic set in. All right, so obviously none of this is financial advice. You should make of this data as you will. But I just think this is an interesting exercise to help orient ourselves to different market scenarios, especially just looking at if Bitcoin goes to different locations, where might we expect EGLD to go? All right, if you like the content, remember to subscribe to the channel, give the video a like, and follow us on Twitter. A lot of updates, indicators, and more over there.